Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or whatever time this stream is finding you. Welcome to another installment of Recover the Ball. I'm your grateful and gracious host, Cowboy Chris. And yes, we're here. We're going to do it again. We're doing it for the last episode in May, and then we're going to get started up again in June. But I'm so happy. I got another phenomenal guest with me today, and I want to go ahead and introduce him off the break. This is a good friend of mine. He's going to come here and share some knowledge with us. Welcome to Recover the Ball, Coach Bleu. How you doing, Coach?
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. I got to call you Coach too, even if them boys.
Well, I'm a coach. I'm a recovery coach. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, I'm still trying to understand why I'm sitting here with them boys.
I know. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. But as always, I like to start out with my Cowboys updates and takes. But as you know, Recover the Ball is the show where we meet at the intersection of healing, hope, and having a good time. Because the first segment, we always talk about our passions in life, the things that we're passionate about. And you know me, I'm passionate about the Dallas Cowboys, all things Dallas Cowboys. I keep up with them all season long and even in the off season and whatnot. And then in the second half of the show, we talk about recovery from loss, from illness, from grief, from hope. This is an all recovery network because we know everybody's going through something or has been through something. And we want to talk about how we can overcome those obstacles of life and keep the journey going with that hope, and so that we can recover the granddaddy of them all, as I always say, recover your vision, your purpose, and your dreams. So let's get into those Cowboys updates and takes like I like to do every show. And we in the off season, folks. It's really not a lot happening right now. We had the rookie mini camp, which was nice. We got to see some of the new draft picks come in and some of our off-season signings get in there with some of the young guys and, starting to build that chemistry. But it's not a lot of news happening. Checking out some of the podcasts that our teams are doing, that some of our players are doing, which, you get a lot of insight into the personalities of the players, which is always fun. But as I was looking at, a lot of the things that was happening in the offseason, it wasn't a lot of news, but it had me start thinking about, what do you do when you're in that off season of greatness? When in the off season, like for me personally, I work in the school system and we just had our graduation today. So we're starting to wrap up things for the school season and for the year for the kids. And what we're about to get into now is it's going to be the off season. It's going to be the summer. And so what are we doing to prepare for that next chapter, for the next cycle of kids that's coming through? And when I was looking at that, I was like, man, okay, we've been already started hiring. I work right next to the principal. So we started hiring new people for next year. We are setting out our game plan of when we're going to welcome back. So really, you call it an off season, but it's never really, like they say in football has become a 24-month product because there's always content. People are always trying to check out what the Cowboys doing. But I always thought, like, as my Recover the Ball family, what are you doing in the off season of greatness? How are you preparing for that next cycle? Do you know when your off season are? What are you doing to, prepare yourself? Are you doing an inventory? See what worked this last season. See what didn't work. See how you can assess and strategize. So in the next cycle that you step into, you can bring that passion, bring that fervor, and have that game plan for success to make you take that next level in whatever it is you're doing. So what I want the Recover the Ball family to do is to start taking that inventory, find out when your off season is with whatever job you're doing or whatever passion you have, but find out when that off season is and then begin to assess and say, hey, let me take a break. We all got to sit back and maybe take a vacation, relax, and, kind of recharge ourselves, as I like to say, and recoup. And then think about how you're going to take that inventory so that you can take those next steps towards greatness in whatever passion you have or profession that you have so that you can always step into the field with being prepared and being great. So that was my spiel for the updates and takes with Cowboy Chris. I want y'all to prepare for your off season while we in the off season with our Cowboys because, football is like a reflection of life. And today I have with me a phenomenal brother that's going to share some insights with me. And once again, I want to welcome Coach Bleu to the show. Welcome to Recover the Ball, Coach Bleu. And as we always get into it, I see you got a hat on, right?
Yeah.
First things we're going to talk about, like we always do on Recover the Ball, is What's your team? Who's your squad?
The only team that need to be mentioned in the NFL, but as you can see, I'm wearing it proudly. You know,
I see.
We got some things we're going through. I think this season's going to be our year, though.
You think it's going to be your year?
Yeah, I don't want to jinx us. That's why I don't want to say anything right now around them boys, because I know y'all like to scout what we got, but that's okay. We're going to be all right this year.
I know. I hear you. So how you think the Giants did in their offseason?
I think they did pretty good, especially on the drafts. You know, I was impressed with the drafts. We got a
Malik Neighbors, the wide receiver. Yeah.
You know, and I hope my quarterback come prepared, ready to throw to him. You know, I'm not sure on my running back. You know.
Right, because y'all let Saquon go to a division rival.
Well, we let him go.
How you gonna let him go? Be a headache for all of us now.
Yeah. But we didn't let him go. We knew it was time for him to go. That's how
I hear you. I hear you with the running backs.
I mean, we still gonna be tight on our running backs.
Okay. So you're sold on Daniel Jones? You like you?
I got no choice. I mean, sold or not, I got no choice. I got to work with what I got. I tried to do some things on the off season. It didn't pan out. Me and a couple of friends, we talked about it. They didn't want to give up no players, so I'm like, we got to keep what we got.
Got to keep what you got. I hear you. So how long have you been a Giants fan?
Since Lawrence Taylor's days. You know, of course, you and I went to school in the Carolinas, college days. So while I was down in North Carolina, I kept watching this guy play at UNC, and I said, wherever this guy goes, wherever he goes, that's my team, because this man was vicious, and he happened to go to the Giants. And I just went there because of Lawrence Taylor. Make no mistakes about it.
When I saw it, I said, oh, he must be from New York. He a Giants fan. But I'm not from Dallas, and I'm a Cowboy fan.
I get it, man. I grew up on the Washington team, and, man, I was a diehard. I mean, I was one of those kids that would literally hitchhike to Redskins Park. Back in the 70s, man.
Oh, wow.
You didn't hitchhike out to Redskins Park in Virginia. Yeah. But I was one of those kids that, and I'm going to take you back, you know, Larry Brown, Charlie Taylor, Billy Kilmer, Sonny Jurgensen, Pat Fisher. I can tell you that whole squad, man. I was a diehard. And then they would just let me down too many times, and I had to switch. I had to switch. I couldn't. Once we lost once we lost in the Super Bowl to the team that's now has that undefeated record, you know, those Fishers, I don't even know, somewhere in Miami, you know, that hurt. I cried like a baby on that day.
Yeah. So you decided to switch.
Yeah, I had to move on. You know, it's time to move. And then when Doug came, I tried to get back, and I was like, okay, I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I think a lot of us was rooting for Doug. You know, no matter what team you were with, you know, you saw, you know, brother in the Super Bowl. It was like, as much as a Cowboy fan, even as a kid then, you know, I was kind of conscious of the times and saying, you know, I love to see, you know, brother, just go ahead and do it, especially with, you know, the stereotypes they like to put on us as you know, can we be a quarterback, you know, and now the conversation is coaching, you know. You know, we're still going through that battle of are we qualified? Do we have the wherewithal to, you know, to be the head coach and whatnot? But you know, then it was the conversation was quarterback. So at that time, I was like, okay, I got to go ahead and root for the, you know, see if Doug can go ahead and do it. And I just remember the energy in Washington at that time was just so electric, you know, and it was like, okay, you couldn't help but to get caught up in the energy, even if you wasn't a direct fan and whatnot. So, I definitely understand that.
Yeah, man, it was hot. It was hot, man. As they say now, it was lit back then when Doug was playing, man.
Indeed,
it was awesome, man.
Yeah. I always tell the story. My father, he was a Commanders fan. Well, you know, they were the Redskins then, but he and when he passed in 2000, that first year in 2001, out of his honor, I said, okay, I'm gonna root for the Commanders for 1 year.
Right. And then you saw what that got you into.
Woo! I understood why you had to switch. You
hurried up and got back to the.
Oh man! I said, okay, Dad. I was gonna try to root for him on the side, undercover for a little bit, but I see why you was yelling at the TV screen so much. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and get back with my boys. I'm gonna stick with the headache that I know and whatnot.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely, man.
Which is my Cowboys and whatnot. But you know, I'm excited for the season. I think, you know, when football comes around, it's just always something that, you know, I've been into for a long time. And you know, my parents got me into it. My mom, she's actually the one. She's a Steeler fan, but you know, religiously on Sundays we watch football, and it was always something that, you know, brought the family together, and we always had a good time doing it and whatnot. And so, you know, I just stuck with it ever since and whatnot. But I was going to ask you, now that, you know, did you ever coach football or?
No? I never coached football. As the word comes from basketball. I coached basketball, which obvious, you know, basketball would got me into college. So it's something that I gave back.
Okay,
in
nice,
my craft.
nice.
Yeah,
Where'd you go to school?
I went to high school, believe it or not, out in Loudoun County, because back in the 70s, things was kind of rough for me. You know, we all go through those changes, and you had a choice.
Yes, indeed.
You better get out this area and go to an area where you can start all over again, or stay here, and your life could end up in this totally different direction. So I went to Loudoun County High School. I was good enough to go get recruited by several D1 schools, including Virginia Tech. I was actually headed to Virginia Tech. They wanted to send me to a prep school for 1 year to prepare my grades. And back then, I wanted to be really a student athlete. I really did. I mean, I wasn't one of those dumb jocks. So when I evaluated, I was a little hesitant, because that means I'm on a 5-year plan, and I wanted to get out in 4 years. So Texas now, because of the basketball schedule and the rigorous schedule that you're going to have coming out of high school, and I said, you know what, that makes sense, and I can go 4 more years. And then they shipped me to a military school. I won't give the name, but they shipped me to a military school in the 70s. And the person that supposed to take me around campus, all the language that he was using was like these racial slurs of other ethnic groups, such as Italians and Hispanics. So you can imagine, what do you call me?
When you're not around, right.
You know, I listened to him for a while, and the commandant wanted me to come. That's, I guess, the headmaster wanted me to come. And I had to get a recommendation. Well, back in high school, the name of our team was called the Loudoun County Raiders. And the Raiders actually had on our emblem a Confederate flag.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Confederate flag. And I'd say I'm the emperor with no clothes on. I mean, I'm the only one to see the emperor with no clothes on. This is racist. Right. And people, blacks, they grew up in that culture, coming from the D.C. area. Yeah. I said, Confederate flag is oppression to us. But nobody listened to me until things got kind of rough, and they had a wooden Confederate flag, and they were suspending blacks in high school at disproportionate rates than they were whites or any other group. And then finally, in order to get their attention, a guy named Gene Ashton, he went up and chopped those Confederate flags off and got arrested, and became national news, and the rest is history. So of course, once Virginia Tech got a hold of that, they was like, well, we still want you, but Fork Union got to do, because you're a little militant. So they wanted to send me to another school. I mentioned the name. They wanted to send me to another school, and I looked at Virginia Tech and I said, thanks, but no thanks. I was getting recruited by HBCU at the time. Nice. And let me tell you, man, HBCU, still the way to go for me. I came back to my culture. I learned some things on a level that HBCU taught us that, don't not only work for corporate America, but own it. That's the mindset that we had. So coming out, man, I was so gracious to be part of that culture, and met brothers like yourself from A&T, Livingstone, Bobby Scotia, St. North Carolina Central. I mean, we go on and on. And the beauty about it is I can go to your homecoming and fit in. I was teasing my guys who go to, the PWIs, the predominantly white institutions, man. I said, where your homecoming? How's your homecoming? This is it?
I remember a lot of guys from UNC Chapel Hill and Duke. They came to A&T or Central's, to have that same experience.
Family affair, man.
Yes,
and
indeed.
we talked trash, but we had a great time. So
always.
That led me into coming up in Arlington, Virginia, which is right across from D.C. I had a lot of issues. Of course, being brought up in a situation where you didn't have a father, or you didn't know your father, still don't know my father, didn't know my father, didn't have a mother that I knew, so they just thrust you off into a family, of families, back then, they drop you off, and then come back. Wow. I was one of those kids. So growing up in the neighborhood, I latched on to many things. One, and you alluded to it the other day, and I laughed, when you come up in the 60s, as I did, I remember going to the water fountain, integrating into a white playground, because we lived in that section of town where we jumped under the fence and went to their playground because it was clean, brand new equipment, brand new basketball court. But they didn't want you there. But as a kid, I remember they played this game with me, man. They was at the water fountain, and they made circles so that I couldn't drink. They kept drinking and drinking, and I'm standing on the side waiting to get something to drink. And finally, I'll never forget this, the older guy, because they was older than me quite naturally, when they got tired of playing the game, I was sitting at the water fountain, and he just turned his head, and the last gulp of water that he had, he spit in my face.
Okay.
And nothing I could do, I'm outnumbered, but it resonated to me that I would never let that happen. And pretty soon I started telling my friends, let's go to this playground. Let's go to what happened there?
Oh yeah.
They started moving further into, and then there was another group that came there that fed us. You know what that group was? They educated us, and they fed us, and they gave us that nourishment, and that was the Black Panthers. Awesome. They came to that same playground, and sitting there talking to them, I remember getting, how they would treat you. They would look at you, and the way they address you was like, "Hey, little brother. Hey, brother. Hey, little brother."
Right.
And I'm like,
pouring
wow.
into you.
Oh man. And I get in, little scuffs on the park. So, and one of the things, man, they used to, tease me about my complexion. You know how they do. And they called me these names. And I came in there scuffling one day, and they had to put us in the corner. I said, "Why are you fighting this dude?" Because he called me this black, name.
Right.
And then the brother looked at me and he said, "Let me tell you something, man. You're a true king. You're a true warrior. Your complexion, man, don't you never let nobody blah, blah, blah." And I looked up at him, man, and he said, "Hey, man, you hungry?" I'm like, let's get you some meal. So he took me into this room, and they were meeting. And I never forget what he did. He brought me up to the front of the meeting and said, "Hey, this is what we're talking about. This is little king right here that they're talking about his complexions. And these are the brothers and sisters that need to understand where they're from. And I'm there to get something to eat." I mean, but the way he poured into me, I never forget it. And,
you never forget something like that.
Yeah, man. So fast forward, anything I can do to pour back into our community, that's what I'm about right now.
Man, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. I'm like, I'm just sitting here, I'm taking the journey with you and reflecting on, just even my own journey. Like, as you said, it was like, I was telling you I did like elementary here. And then when I moved to New York, I was, at a predominantly white high school, which I love. Shout out Dobbs Ferry High School. Made a lot of friends. It was really nice. And I can remember my father telling me, he said, "Oh, you should go to an HBCU." And I was like, "Oh, well, I want to go." I kind of had become acclimated, you know what I'm saying? And just was like, okay, can we all get along? I was more like Rodney King than Martin Luther at the time. Just being young and had a lot of joy in my heart and just, just love people, period, and whatnot, So I could just remember him, saying, "Oh, you should go to the HBCU," because he actually went to Central. And, I applied I said, okay, well, let me see what he's talking about. So I applied to A&T and applied to Clark. And once I got on the campus at A&T, North Carolina A&T, Aggie Pride, shout out to all my Aggies out there, I got it right away. I understood how being in that environment, people pouring into me and meeting brothers like you met that were giving me some understanding of my history and understanding, where we come from. And, just even going through that journey, I even fell out of love with football, with my Cowboys for a minute, because understanding, just the struggles that a lot of the athletes go through to even get to that point. And, it was like even a reflection of what we had been through historically and whatnot. We all just bidding for this lottery ticket, what I'm saying, that, sometimes doesn't come true. But yeah, and, and what's funny, when you're talking about the Confederate flag, I was sitting there thinking, like, I can remember as a kid, loving the Dukes of Hazzard, what I'm saying? Had my little General Lee car, had no clue, what I'm saying, to the significance of it, until later on in life and whatnot. So, but, in time, learned, had some brothers' point to be understood the historical significance of things, and yet, still went on this journey and just began to understand who I was and how important it was that as somebody poured into me, I need to pour into somebody as well and whatnot, So, man, your story is fascinating. I love it.
HBCUs, of course, you went to a good school, but I went to the best. HBCU. I mean, I'm not going to take, A&T is a good school. A&T is a real good school.
You hear what he's talking about.
But those Golden Bulls, the greatest HBCU of all times, is Johnson C. Smith University. They changed my mindset. They showed me what life is going to be like for us.
I got you.
There was no holds barred. It was, I remember my history teacher, as a student athlete, especially as a basketball player, this guy sort of labeled us as a prima donna. that we was going to get things, you know. And I took offense to that. He became in fact, my best professor.
Okay.
It was history. Dr. Hines was like, I would come in, you know, we off the road trip from a game, and we'd sit in the back of the class, and you know, we were no dummies, but again, we sit in the back of the class. And I remember his tirade. He mentioned there are certain members in this class who think because they're athletes that they are going to just be given a grade. Now this is this is how he started his lecture out. And I'm looking around, I see football players and I see basketball. And then he said, they walk in here like prima donnas, and the first place they go in the back of the room, thinking they all this want the world to rather cost them. And I'm thinking,
he's putting the haterade on early, right?
My team is in the back, and that's what we did. We all sit as a team. And he went on for about an hour to berate the basketball players that was in his class. And some of the guys thought it was kind of funny because, you know, we ain't really paying attention to this dude. But I took exception to it. And as they left, I stayed after class. I waited till everybody left, and I walked down to him and I asked him, I said, Dr. Hines, I don't really know you, you don't know me. But what you just said and what you just did to me, I think you were talking about me, and I take exception to that. Why did you do that? And then he looked at me and he said, I'm glad you stayed, because here's why I did it. You're better than in the back. I see your grades. You should be sitting in the front of the class every time you walk in it. You should be setting precedents when you walk in this classroom because others follow you because you're an athlete, don't realize that you are just as smart or better than them. But when you walk in here, you put yourself in that, he just went on until this day. Even my kid, when she was going to college or high school, I better not come in school and see you in the back. We always sit in the front because of Dr. Hines in that story. And he almost got me into pre-law. You know, he wanted me to take pre-law, but I was more in the communications field.
Okay, we more alike than different, bro.
That's HBCU, man.
Indeed.
But he became my best professor. He and I, when he passed, I was sorry. It was a few years ago, and we talked about that moment in class. And when I come back from homecoming, he would see me and he'd say, "Mr." He would never call me by my first name, and we'd sit there, and he said, I said, Dr. Hines, you remember how rough you? He said, look at you today. And he's right.
That's what a coach does. That's what a coach does. Even, a professor, not necessarily given the title coach, but when you have a good professor, that's what they're doing. They're coaching up your mind, your body and your spirit, so that you can go on and take this world on. And so was because you played sports, did it give you the inclination to want to coach kids?
Not really.
Not really? Okay.
It gave me, I could say growing up in a neighborhood, white or black would help you back then, with us.
Right.
And there was this white priest that, I was playing out in the streets, and you know how you play football in the streets. You throw that football in the hood, and I want to say I was 12 or 13, I was throwing football. You know how you catch it in the street so it don't hit nobody's car?
Right.
Well, I threw it too close to a pimp's car. And they knew it was the pimp's car. So when I threw the ball, they could have caught it, but when he looked down and saw who car it was, he let the football go. And it went right through his back windshield. And it was life-changing for me because everybody scattered because the pimp came outside. Who broke my window? I was the only one standing. And I knew what he had in his waistband, so I just basically ran in the house like everybody else. As he was trying to find out who broke his window, I remember him shooting up in the air, to say, who did this? And none of the kids, they all pointed at him. In my house. And
they gave you up, man.
Oh man.
Quick.
Man, my brothers. And when he did that, this is why I think when I teach these boys, I said, sometimes you gotta man up and understand who's your father in your life, because I didn't have a father. And this pimp walked into the house, and we had a stepfather. And walked through the stepfather like he wasn't even there, saw me sitting in the back, and proceeded to slap me.
Okay.
And look at him, because what I'm gonna do?
Right.
and he said, "You better have my money. You better have I better have my money to have my windshield repaired by Monday. Like, everybody in this house is going down." I'm like, "Oh man," you know. Now they worried, and how we gonna get the money? I can tell you, in the '70s, I went to a Catholic school for about 3 months before I was asked to leave because of my behavior. But during that time, I befriended a guy named Father Ray. Of Our Lady Queen of Peace in Arlington, Virginia. He really poured into minority boys, and just to keep us on a straight and narrow. And when that happened, the only person I turned to was Father Ray. And Father Ray heard the story and said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of that windshield." And I'm going, wow, man. You know, this is a white dude, you know, helping this poor black boy, and nobody else in the neighborhood is helping me. And he did. And he told me this. He said, "Whatever I give you now, I want you to turn back and give in your community later." And this is in the '70s. I'm going, yeah, man, this, whatever you say, let me get this window, let me get this money to this guy to get his window. Not consciously knowing what he had said to me, give back to your community, in other words. So after graduating from Johnson C. Smith, I went overseas and played professional ball. And I remember getting a call. I was in Switzerland, and you know, they called me and said, "Hey, Dr. Ray passed. You know, he had a heart attack, had a tragic accident." And I was really saddened by it, but I remember those words. So I didn't really, it didn't really resonate or set in with me, but I knew what he had told me. I promised him I would do this. But again, fast forward.
You're a kid. You just trying not to get killed at that moment. Time, space,
True story, man. And I remember coming back, you know, after playing ball in '86. There was a movement. And I'm taking, I mean, I don't know if you probably remember, there was a movement with Max Robinson and his brother, I forget his brother's name, but Trans-American. And the Japanese had made a comment in '86 that the reason the literacy rate in America is so low is because of minorities. Where at the time in the '80s, who was the minorities? Here I am with a degree. You're telling me that, you know, I'm going, you know, I'm dumb. So I had I had a problem with them. And I protested, and I went down and protested.
Okay, gotcha.
You know, at the embassy. And then the Japanese person asked us. He said, "Well, where are your black leaders?" And I said, "Why we have to have black leaders? Why can't you do it? Why can't I do it?" And that's when I decided to start mentoring kids on Stanton Road in Southeast DC.
Oh, wow.
And that's fast forward.
Indeed. That's great. That is a great story, man. And I'm enjoying this. We see, I always say, you know, Karen was teasing me the last show. She was like, you know, Cowboy Chris, he come with his cars and whatnot. But I always know when I get down across from phenomenal people, we're going to get phenomenal stories so that we can make the transformation for those that are watching. So we're going to take a break real quick, Coach Bleu. We're going to come back and have some more conversation. But as always, you know, you're watching Recover the Ball with Cowboy Chris. So stay tuned and come back for the next segment. Stay tuned. That's new cadence. Here we go. You know, that's going viral, the whole nine. So you're now rocking with Cowboy Chris and Recover the Ball, where we're going to be talking football. We're going to talk recovery and being at that intersection of healing, hope, and having a good time, folks. I want you to give me 15 minutes and then give me the last 15 minutes and then check out at least 3 episodes. And I'm sure you'll be convinced that this is the show that you want to rock with great Cowboys content. We're going to be talking recovery, we're going to talk in life, because, you know, in life, we're trying to not only, you know, root on our teams, and we're not only talking about recovery from substance abuse, we're talking about recovery. There's a lot of people out there trying to recover their dreams, trying to recover that hope, trying to recover that purpose. And we're going to do that here on Recover the Ball with Cowboy Chris. I'm going to have great guests, like my great guest I have here now, Karen. She's going to rock with me, and we're going to be doing great things here at Recover the Ball with Cowboy Chris. Amen. Welcome back to the second segment of Recover the Ball with Cowboy Chris. I am your gracious host, Cowboy Chris. And today we are sitting down with Coach Bleu, who's sharing some phenomenal stories about his life and his journey. And as always, in the second segment of Recover the Ball, you know, we talked about football, we talked about some of his story. And in the second part, we always like to talk about recovery. And at Recover the Ball, we call this an All Recovery Network. And this is where we talk about recovering from substance use, we talk about recovering from grief, recovering from loss, but most importantly, we want to recover our vision, our purpose, and our dreams. So without any further ado, we're going to get back into the segment as we were sharing, as Coach Bleu was sharing. And where I like to pick back up is I'm thinking about when we talked the other day, and you were given the charge by Father Ray to pour back into your community, give back, make sure, you know, the sister was asking you like, well, the person was asking where your leader's at, and you said, well, why can't we do it?
Right.
And so I know that you have a phenomenal program in yourself where you've taken on to do exactly what Father Ray asked you to do. So I wanted to kind of get into a little bit of that and share the folks that's calling you Coach Bleu today.
Right. Well, I mean, it started in, I want to say 85, 86, when the call came out. It was like, well, where are your leaders? And at the time, I think Jesse Jackson was running for president, and you had the Jesse Jacksons.
Right.
But it was like the fact that you slighted so many black people by saying we were illiterate, you know.
Right.
You know, I went to HBCU, proud I went to HBCU. What does that say about us? And then when we sit down and had a dialogue with them, after the anger subsided from the physicality, like, you said what? But you had to sit down and listen to where they were coming from. And back then in Japan, all they saw was the negative images of black people.
Right.
In '86, they were still watching Shaft, Superfly, all the black exploitation movies, so they didn't know anything about us. When they advertised leisure suits, they had us with a monkey face. I mean, you can Google this, had us in a monkey face with big white lips, you know, doing this gesture where they had
around the world, not just Japan.
So that was offensive, and you know, and I was like, no, that's not who we are. And then I started, I used to play basketball in the Urban Coalition. Urban Coalition back in the day was the who's who of basketball. And if you were the top notch in this town, other than Berry Farms, you go to Urban Coalition, that's where you made a name.
Gotcha.
And for a while, I was saying, well, I would come home in the summertime and, I play outdoors. My sister lived on Stanton Road. I remember all these kids hanging out, doing in the May. I said, well, why don't you go to school? And they were like, this is in May.
Yeah.
And I just used to work out shooting baskets, outdoors, and he would come in and they say, hey, I got next. And I'm like, well, how old are you? Well, I'm 14, I'm 12. I said, no, you ain't got next, because it's only 11 o'clock.
Right.
Well, when can I get next? At 3:30, when school is out.
Yeah.
So you cannot play basketball with me until school is out, of course.
Where did you get this soldier spirit? It's like from when you were younger.
HBCU, brother. I'm trying to tell you. It was, when you
but it even seemed like it was before then.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? When you went to the court and you knew
what's going to happen.
I got next. It's like
then they got their little posse, and like, he won't let us play. And I'm like, nah, that's not how it is.
Right.
It's my basketball, and I had a good outdoor basketball.
Oh yeah.
I'm taking my ball. That's how it's going to work. Yeah. I got names, because then I come back out the next day. I said, hey, man, 3:30. So what you mean? I said, man, you got to start going to school and then coming out and play.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, a few of them would go back to school and say, hey, coach, I went to school, da-da-da,
Right.
And I would teach them some stuff, and the rest is history. So I just started fast forward, and and then I came across some opportunities in Prince George's County to work with some kids in Prince George's County. And then there was another coach who saw what we were doing, and they had this gym, another gym that emerged in the 90s, where all the top players in the area would go to. It was a very secretive gym. All the top players in the DMV would be there. And if it got too well known, this guy would switch this gym to another location. But what we were doing, they would play against some of the old timers, old professionals. And I mean, they would be old pros and they're beating up on these high school kids who are now professionals coming back
Right.
doing the same thing. That one of the coaches, noticed my love for helping these kids, and he said, "Hey, man,
the passion.
you ever thought about you ever thought about working as assistant coach?" I was like, "Nah, not really. I just want to keep the kids off the street." And then in Prince George's County in the early '90s, we had the Urban Coalition in D.C.
Right.
They had nothing in Prince George's County.
Okay.
I created the first ever Pro-Am basketball league at Prince George's Community College back in the early '90s.
Okay.
We had Mutombo, Mike's. We had every NBA ball player that was coming through the Herbal would come to Prince George's. And finally, a college coach came, because I let the high school kids play too. And they saw me, and he said, "Hey man, I'm looking at these 2 players over here that I want to recruit." And he was from North Carolina Central. And I said, "Well, look in the stands. Rick Baham, Rick Pitino, John Thompson,
Right.
They want them too.
They want to recruit too, right?
But
right.
he laid the HBCU card on me.
Okay, right.
And I'm like, okay,
right,
John C. Smith, but I feel where you're going.
Right.
So, he said, "If I can get these 2 players, I'll let you come down and be my assistant coach." You bring a ball player from New York or D.C., and especially it was during the Rayford Edmonds times.
Okay.
These ballers was coming from a different mindset.
Right.
They was getting it in.
Yeah.
And these players, man, they wind up going to this university and turning it around. And the rest, that's how I got the name Coach Bleu.
Okay.
And I made sure that I stayed with them until the end. I wasn't gonna let them drop out of school, no matter how tough it got for me, income-wise or whatever. I would not let these boys fall behind, because they came from D.C. and we had a motto: you take care of your own.
Oh, nice.
And then when I came back and got an opportunity to coach at Dunbar High School as assistant coach. And we started from scratch, because Dunbar High School had a legend, a reputation of winning.
Oh, yeah.
And it had gone down until Coach Gary Lampkins came in and he turned the program around. And I'm proud to say I was with him when he did it. And I think we were one of the last teams that won the city title. We beat Gonzaga back in the day, man, in Verizon Center.
Yeah, I know that was big.
It was epic, man. It was epic. So, I appreciate Coach Gary Lampkins giving me the opportunity to coach with him. And he and I we talk basketball on a regular, but more importantly, we now talk about saving the lives of our black boys.
Nice,
so that's where we evolved to now.
Oh man, that's phenomenal. You reminded me a lot of myself. As much passion and as much love as I have for football. I played ball, I played basketball in high school. That was the sport I was actually, good at. And I even coached it a while. I coached my younger brother's team. And like you said, but I really love how, you take coaching to heart. It's not just about, sometimes when you see coaching or you see coaches, it's, they're part of the system in terms of just, manufacturing these athletes, but not really getting into the mindset or the heart or the condition of where they're coming from, to see how they can really transform their lives, that even if they don't make it to the league, they can make it as men, to be able to be, pour back into their own communities or to support their families, So I really like, the heart that you have in terms of pouring into the men, to the young men that we have, whatnot. And it's, man, that's phenomenal. So I got to ask you who your basketball team is, since we didn't. Oh Lord, he the heavy side. So
yeah, man. Let me just say this.
I guess they're not one of the Final Four.
Nah. When it comes to the pros, I grew up in the D.C. area.
Okay.
I remember when the Capitol Center was built from ground up.
Okay.
And the guy that used to insure the Capitol Center, I went to school with his son, so I used to go to the Washington Bullets games all the time in the 70s, 72.
Okay.
So needless to say, when they won the championship in 78, we hooked school. I was a senior, and me and my high school buddies, we drove to the Capitol to watch the parade. And I remember Abe Pollin holding that trophy in his arm. And we kids, man, we like, Mr. Pollin, bring that trophy over here. He brought the trophy to to us over in at the parade, and we started rubbing on the trophy, man. I've been a Washington Bullets fan for life, man.
Okay.
For life. Okay. I know I'm a little disappointed right now, but I know they're the Wizards, and I gotta respect that. But even every kid that I talk to, they ask me, "What's my team?" The Washington Bullets.
Washington. You know? Oh, you still say the Bullets? You still call them the Bullets?
Yeah,
okay, I get it. I get it, indeed. So tell me about the program that you have that I find phenomenal. It was where you combine basketball with robotics.
Wow. I
was like, man, okay, that is something, especially with a lot of the STEM programs that are going on. But to be able to combine those passions, because, you know, we have a lot of, you know, now today, you know, nerds are cool. You know, so when I look at, you know, my kids and the generation coming up now, before you couldn't maybe have a different passion besides maybe athletics or, you know, sports. But now we have a lot of, you know, generations that have been getting into the science programs and getting into the arts. And it seems like you've seen that and combined those passions. And so share with Recover the Ball family a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I created a mentoring program called Manhood 101 12 years ago. Okay. That mentoring program has produced some dynamite young brothers, man, over the past 12 years. One of the things that I look at, I'm not a teacher by trade or anything like that, but I do understand the game. And as I stated, I like to see student athletes versus the other roll around. So, you know, we know basketball or sports is a magnet for some of our youth.
Yes.
But 8 High is coming in. STEM is hot, man.
Yes, it is.
They're going to eliminate maybe 30,000 jobs, but create millions of STEM jobs. And our kids need to get on board with that.
Yes,
so
indeed.
One of the things I did is come up with an idea called basketball and robotics. Okay. On one side of the court, you're going to have a basketball team, you know, tournaments going on.
Yeah.
Kids are becoming fans of basketball.
Yes.
But on the other side of the same facility, we have drones. Nice. What they call RC racing cars that they can build and race around the track, that they got a program in the computer. That's all part of STEM. And then we want to do we want those fans to sort of mingle over on the basketball side and say, what's all this outside?
Right.
And get them involved that way.
Yeah.
So that's how that came about. So I Googled it. I said, maybe somebody else around the country is doing it. Nowhere in the nation is anybody doing sports and robotics on the same platform. Nowhere. So that's how that came about. And then I said, let's take it to an area where most people look at it and say, these kids, they're not going to catch on.
Right.
So I went back to what I call my neighborhood. I'm in the Suitland.
Come back home.
Oh man, I love Suitland. That's where my office is.
Okay.
We created a Boys and Girls Club there years ago. So now we want to make sure we bring it back to Suitland.
Okay.
We want to put it in the neighborhood.
Nice.
And make sure that those kids have the opportunity to get STEM. And then we added another component to it. Before each basketball game, like to tournament, we are inviting 50 kids, ages elementary to middle school, to come into a classroom settings where we have someone teaching them the components of STEM.
Nice.
For about an hour and a half. Then afterwards, we're going to feed them. And then we're doing the same thing for basketball.
Right.
We want them to understand the fundamentals of basketball because part of my contract in Europe, you had to teach the Europeans how to play basketball. All Americans had it in their clause. You had to do a basketball camp.
Wow.
Back
Wonder they got so good so fast.
I can tell you, Detlef Shrimp, I can tell you the players that we help in the NBA.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I wanted that component to be there so they can understand the fundamentals. The Europeans are some of the best fundamentally sound basketball players because they learn at an early age. We are very talented. We are talented. Our talent gets us by.
Yes.
But fundamentals gets us to the next level. And a lot of kids are not learning that. And that's how that came about.
Man, that is phenomenal. I'm like, and it's interesting that how you took both of them. You saw what was important, because that's kind of like how the concept of Recover the Ball came about. Was, you know, like I said in the beginning, you know, I had this passion for football, but then in my own journey, you know, my recovery revolved around alcohol. And so I had to go into recovery for a while. And so when I was going through that process, got straight, been sober now 9 years. And so what happened was I met somebody, you know, through one of the recovery facilities, and he said, Chris, you want to coach? And I was like, coach? It's like, yeah, recovery coaching. And a lot of the same fundamentals as you see in terms of, when you look at like a Tony Robbins, Les Brown's coaching, or like even from basketball, when I, remind me of my days of playing basketball, how you sit down with somebody, you get a game plan together, and you help them to transform their lives so that they can overcome, because, what we find out in recovery, a lot of times, the disease is a mental disease, it's a behavioral disease. And it's, because once you put down the drink, you still got to deal with all those, internal issues that are going on. And so for me, it was like, I'll say, okay, I'm in recovery. I've been doing it for a while. I enjoy it, and I enjoy the people I meet. I meet some phenomenal people. We're having a good time, and we got a lot of joy here. But at the same time, it's like, well, how can I, merge two concepts that I really love? I love sports and entertainment, and I like to, I like broadcasting and things like that. It's like, how can I bring this with the, with the recovery community, and just build a brand and build something that we can attract people to, do prevention programs, all of that. And so I really like how it's like, okay, sometimes you may have a concept over here and it's another concept over here. Both of them important, but maybe if we combine them, we can fly a little bit further together and whatnot.
Yeah, man. I can see your glow when you talk about it, man. Yeah, that's what I like to hear. The passion is there, man.
Yes.
No amount of money can take away that glow that you have for helping others in your mission in terms of as you walk daily,
Yes.
That's why Manhood was so essential, because we started it, with kids that had issues in high school,
right.
Incorrigible acts, and give us the worst of your worst. There's no bad kids. This is bad teachers sometimes, not teachers in the school, but in the communities and things, bad actors.
Right.
Yeah, so I see, how it could evolve. And these boys, we started out on that mission, and now we have taken them as far as to Capitol Hill earning congressional awards.
Nice.
So, when the kid said, when you pointed this kid and said he's not going to do it, I pointed and said he will do it.
Yeah.
So that's the passion.
You got to get the right coach.
There you go, man. So.
And like when we watch our sports, sometimes you see the talent, but if you don't have good coaching around, good mentorship, can easily, folks can fall by the wayside, or you don't really get that potential is not realized to the levels that it can be and whatnot. So like we always talk about recovery in the second part of the show. And so I guess for you, in terms of your own personal journey, what are some of the some adversity? I mean, you shared some already, but it's just in terms of the adversity maybe that you faced, even in maybe developing the program, or just maybe even within your own being that said, okay, I got to get through this, and maybe what some of the techniques, or what was it that helped you to overcome and stay on this path of pouring back into your community and keeping your life on track?
Great question. I would say trying to get other strong Black role models involved and not get off the fact of doing events. We do great with events. This event looks great. This event looks great. What happens after events? Like coaching. You got to practice and prepare each and every day.
Yes,
so,
indeed.
and getting folks to, to commit to that, it's hard. It's hard, especially our Black males. But we do have a good pipeline. I do have a good network of strong Black men. But if I had to add, starting out initially, that was one of my biggest issues. Just trying to get, hey, come on, man, we can do. Well, I can give you today, but I can't give you tomorrow, next week. And these boys know that. These boys, they know who's genuine. When they say, when they tell you, they know who's around.
Gotcha.
And they've been disappointed. So I tell the mentors, I say, look, man, you got to be in there for the long haul, because if they see you coming in and out of their life, they're not going to take the program serious, nor they're going to take you seriously.
Right. Yeah. So what makes you stick to it? Let me back up, because I think I say that because I know for part of, as I've been on this journey, and like been on this journey of recovery and trying to maybe get somebody to put down a drink, or go to treatment or something like that, coming up against that similar resistance, not the same resistance, but that resistance of people that don't want to change their life. And, I get to points of like, okay, man, is it worth it? Is what I'm doing working? Why am I doing this? I could just, go to work, come home, and, just chill, take care of me and mines, and just leave it at that. What do you say to yourself to keep you going each and every day? I know you've had some inspiration in the past, but tomorrow, each day is different, can be different. What do you do? What do you say to yourself when those moments get tough like that?
I don't say anything. I actually look at the proof is in the pudding. What do you say to a person that's recovering from a mental illness, and then you see that person back on the right track, and that person, he or she, has changed their lives to the point where they're very productive and they're helping others, and you help be part of that.
Yeah.
So that's all it takes is one of them to come and say, Coach, I'm now married. I went to college. I got a job. I'm married. I got kids, and now I'm working in the community. Bam. That's it, man.
Yeah. So you like sewn it into your heart, and you look at the results and say, okay, shake it off, keep going.
When you get them yearly, I mean, now it's every year. It's an average about 10 to 15 kids coming back, sharing their stories out of the hundreds that have been out there.
Oh, wow.
They're coming back, sharing their stories.
Nice.
In fact, I like to say in August, we're working with Councilman Sidney Harrison.
Oh, nice.
Sidney Harrison, man, dynamite brother, man, in District 9. He came up with a concept, said, hey, Coach, I'm thinking about doing an overnight camp. Can you help me set this up? And I really want to utilize the support of Manhood 101.
Okay.
I mean, I got enough on my plate, but hey, man, you're talking about bringing in some youth. And I said, can we put a STEM initiative to it? Can we have drones at the camp? Can we do this? And he said, yeah, you can do all of that.
Right.
And then, anything that discourage anybody is how are you going to fund this? I always do the opposite. Let's do it, and somehow we're going to make it work. And that's Sidney Harrison, man. When we started putting together, he looked at me like, whoa, but you asked me to do it. If you want to do it right.
Right.
So I'm proud to say, man, we're going to be doing the camp at Hard Bargain Farm with about 36 kids.
Nice.
It's going to have mentorship, and these are junior high, and I would imagine junior high kids. We're looking at junior high kids, and we're going to have a STEM component. But guess who's mentoring? All of my boys who come through, who have proven themselves from Manhood 101, that now they want to grow up and show me that they can lead. Let's see you lead this group of young men because they're closer to your age.
Right.
But we also have the older mentors observing them and making sure that they can guide them and say, this is how you talk to them.
Right.
Oh, Coach, I know what they're going to get. Those kids, I'm not going to do what you say.
They're going to get the same resistance that they gave you.
Welcome to now how are you going to handle it?
Right.
But Coach, no.
Yeah.
You have to talk to that kid or you're going to give up on the kid.
Yeah.
That's what they're expecting. They're expecting you to, their behavior.
They're waiting for you to give up.
Because others have given up on them.
Yeah.
So you're going to give up on them?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you got to keep going. I love that concept, and I need to find out more about Manhood 101.
Absolutely.
Actually, the school I'm at now, they started a program called Rising Suns and whatnot. This a great mentorship program. But what I always thought about in mentorship is that it's so important to bridge the generations. You have, like you said, those young men are coming back after they've gone through a process, and you're watching them pour back into the ones that's coming into it, and then those that they're observing those that have gone before them are observing that sometimes, it's like, I think it's so important that, you have someone in their 20s and 30s, talking to somebody in their 40s and 50s, and those in their 40s and 50s talking to somebody in their 60s and 70s, and so forth, And some of my best friends, they're older guys, they're in their 70s and 80s, and some of my friends are like, I said, man, I love hanging around older people, man. That's where the wisdom is and whatnot. Because I'm going to be where they, God willing, and the creek don't rise, as my dad would say. I said, I'm going to be where they are one day. So I want to see, what they talking about now, and maybe they can give me some insight into how I can handle it, because they say, you young. I'm like,
I know,
young.
Man. I know. You young, brother.
They've been telling me I'm young. I'm like, I don't feel that young anymore, whatnot. But I'm grateful, and I really like your story. It reminds me a lot of my father. He was a person that coached and whatnot. He worked at a boys' home in New York in Westchester County, where kids from the city. They came and stayed on this campus and whatnot. They had to stay with us, and it wasn't quite foster care because the objective was always to get them back with their families. But just like you said, they would come there for a while and they would leave, And he had so many stories where they would come back, Mr. Powell, man, when you took me out to the field that day and said it, now, I'm married, I got this going on, and I saw that, and I always admired him, for that. And he just always had that passion for kids and to pour into them and whatnot. So, man, I just think you're doing phenomenal work, man. And do you have any words of wisdom or any quotes that you live by that you want to share with the Recover the Ball family, or something that, a motto of sorts, or just something that, you would want to share for anybody that's, checking out the show and they're doing this type of work, but they want to, they may feel a little bit, down or whatever, but they want to keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, not just one motto. I mean, it hits you, that moment. So it's several. I mean, quotes from the autobiographies that I read from famous black men and women, man. It's so many. Yeah. It's not just one. It's just when that mood hits you, If anything, I encourage our black boys to educate themselves, be far beyond the classrooms. I know it's so easy. When we came through, we was joking the other day. We said, "Do y'all know what encyclopedias are?" What's that? And then these books that these people used to sell to us, and if you didn't get A through Z, if you couldn't afford them, now you got it right at your fingertips. So I encourage them to go far beyond the classrooms, man. Understand those teachers today are your lead, could be teaching you how to lead tomorrow. Right. So, I know it's tough. I mean, it was tough when we were in school.
No doubt.
Somehow we sustained, we moved on, and became the men who we are. I mean, life ain't been no crystal stair, if you ever heard that slogan, but eyes to keep climbing, man. Eyes to keep climbing.
No doubt. So, wonderful.
If anything I could leave as a positive quote, man, is believe in yourself. My favorite song, I want to say by George Benson, The Greatest Love of All.
Okay. Oh, you said, I like how you did that. You said by George Benson.
Oh, man.
Before Whitney did it. Whitney did a beautiful job as well. But I remember the George Benson version too.
And the words resonated because when he breaks it down, you're going to find the greatest love of all is inside of you, man.
Yes.
If I had to leave any quotes, that's the quote that I would leave with. The greatest love of all is inside of you. And don't let no one tell you differently. No one.
Indeed.
Because when they tell you differently, they don't know you. They don't know you.
No
and
doubt.
To rise above all the negativity that's going to be thrown at you, brothers. I mean, and we throw it. And, we throw it at them. In our mentoring sessions, we BH, Black History 365. It ain't. Whoa, we throw it at them from Africa all the way.
Not just February, right?
Man,
you got to get it all year round.
Oh my God, all year round.
Indeed,
absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you, Coach Bleu, for coming and sitting down and talk to the Recover the Ball family. We're going to definitely be checking all the great work you got going out there. You have any socials or anything where people can find out more about your programs?
Yes, they can find out more about us on www.mh101safe.com. We have a good event coming up on June 22nd where we want the sheriff to come out, and we got our boys geared up to read. It's called Man Who Read, and we partner with Sheriff Carr. He don't know, but he's about to get lit up there. Oh man, we want everybody to come on out, man.
Indeed.
This June 22nd at Drew Freeman Middle School. We start at 10 in the morning with the educational piece, and then hopefully we have our drone competition and basketball competition.
Sounds wonderful.
So come on out, man.
We're going to be there. I'm going to have some of my Recover the Ball family come out with me as well. And indeed, and I'll put some of those details in the description as well. We thank Coach Bleu for coming out and sharing his story. And Recover the Ball, remember, we air every second and fourth Monday of the month. I appreciate y'all tuning in again. Be sure to check us out next month. That's been this episode of Recover the Ball with Cowboy Chris. I'll catch you all in June. Peace.